If you need it, I'm giving you permission. Permission to be unreasonable. Now, hold on, I can hear a bunch of husbands going, well, it's about time, but need to be unreasonable with my wife. Some wives going, oh, I'm going to give that man a piece of my mind and be unreasonable about it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you saying what is true. That's it. I mean, do you realize that there are people who, in times past and in this very day, who say what is true, and they are marked as domestic terrorists. They're marked as intolerant zealots trying to push their religious views on other people. They're browbeaten in any number of ways, and the net effect has been that a lot of us have dialed back our willingness to say the truth in a way that is commensurate with the topic. Let me give you a very almost silly illustration. If you were in a building and you could see through a big plate of glass a murder taking place just outside, just literally on the other side of the plate of glass, what would you do? What would you say? And how would you say it? If you were sitting eating dinner and there were people who had their back to the window, would you say, you know, I know this might not be the appropriate time to bring this up, and I don't want to seem extreme, but there's a man putting a knife into a woman out there and killing her, and from what I can see, she's screaming really loud and begging for help. But anyway, how's the dessert? No. If you've ever seen someone die, if you've ever been in the presence of someone who's dying, or someone who is seriously hurt with a lot of blood and a traumatic injury that requires immediate attention, what is the normal reaction? What is the appropriate reaction? In fact, what's the appropriate reaction if you see a woman getting mugged and having her life perhaps taken from her? What's the appropriate reaction? What's the appropriate tone of voice? What's the appropriate volume? Murder! Stop! Someone help! Police! Common tones of voice, common vernacular goes out the window. All right? Now, let me retreat quickly and give you a historical illustration. If I say the name Patrick Henry, does that name ring a bell with you? Are you familiar with the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech? Did you know when he gave the speech at St. John's Church in Richmond for that illegal parliament that was being held, that he was offending people in the room? There were people who put forth a motion for the Virginia legislature, the rump parliament as it was called, because they were meeting illegally, who put forth a measure to be voted on that they would send another treatise, or another treaty rather, entreaty to the King of England, saying, hey, come on, can't we get along? We can work this out. Meanwhile, there were guns fired in Boston. There were warships that were coming to enslave the country. And Patrick Henry stood up and gave what is now one of the most famous speeches in all of American history, commonly known as the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech. But at the end of the speech, when he gave those famous lines and he said, is life so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but give me liberty or give me death. Those are the words. That's how they appear just about verbatim on a printed page. But what you may not know is that when he said those words, he was shouting at the top of his lungs and his vessels were sticking out on his neck. And he arched his back and said, is life so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? And he crouched down in a mocking fashion for those present who were willing to enslave themselves and their children's children, rather than fight for liberty, rather than appear extreme. right? And he said, forbid it, Almighty God. And then while he pretended that he had chains on, he said, I know not what course others may take. And he's shouting at the top of his lungs, okay? But as for me, he said, give me liberty. And he broke the chains in his mime, in his acting. He said, or give me death. And he plunged his hand to his chest like he was plunging a dagger into his heart. That speech is remembered. That single speech may have actually saved the American Revolution, because if the people in Virginia who wanted to have more peace with the king had gotten their way, the strongest colony in the Union would have not prepared itself to fight. And the British, if they had been able to crush the Virginia aristocracy and the Virginia revolutionaries, then in all likelihood, the American Revolution would have been lost. And it was preserved because one man had the willingness and the courage to say the truth in the tone equal to the crisis. All right? Our nation is in a crisis. We have a crisis at our southern border. We have a crisis dealing with Iran. We have a crisis with the murder of over 50 million dead babies. We have a moral crisis with the assault on marriage of the militant homosexuals. And we have a crisis of a church that is in a spiritual coma, that doesn't want to rock the boat. The boat is sinking. It's okay if you rock it. And I want to give you permission, in calm tones, equal to the crisis. Go ahead, be unreasonable. Because you can't reason with people who want to murder the innocent and assault marriage and allow our nation to be overrun and allow Islamic terrorists in Iran to possess nuclear weapons. You can't reason with people like that. So I want you to feel free to be as bold and courageous as you possibly can and join Patrick Henry in saying, give me liberty or give me death.